This week on the Squatchers Lounge podcast, we journey into the abyss, the depths, the darkness. I know we're not doing more woo commentary, although I think this could apply. Tonight, we discuss whether or not Sasquatch uses caves for shelter. I mean, what's not to like about a cave? Our ancestors used them. Other primates use them, right? I mean, that's where we found all those gigantomopithecus, right? Or was it just the Australopithecine? And now I give to you some real para-anthropomorpha. The Reverend Jeff Kelly.
Well, welcome everybody to the Squatchers Lounge podcast. I am indeed your host, the Reverend Jeff Kelly, and I've been fiddling with my earphones during the entire intro trying to figure out why it's so quiet when I had the volume turned down. Well, that's how we're going to start it out this week, people. It's going to be one of those nights. As with me always is Father David Batdorf. How you doing tonight there, David, buddy?
Excellent. I've been up since like 2:30 in the morning, so this should be I'm going to ramble.
Yeah, buddy. Well, you know, it's been an interesting week in the Bigfoot newsy type stuff. So let's go ahead and jump right into that. Our buddy Guy Edwards over at the Bigfoot Lunch Club. You know, we like to tease him a lot, but he does put out a lot of good articles throughout the week. And I just caught this one in my news feed today. Was the one about Redmond Mullis and the anti-conspiracy website attacking Bigfoot elegy, quote on 100,000 Bigfoot in North America. And of course it was a misquote to begin with, but you know, how many Bigfoot do we really think are hanging out in North America these days?
Well, like it's hard to qualify, and I'm sure that if this anti-conspiracy website, if they were to use words where it wasn't expletive deleted, maybe could have proposed a better model for that, or yeah, I mean, come on, it was basically just making fun of the whole Bigfoot thing. And I like the fact that Guy Edwards pushes back and basically says, like, look, for all you uber skeptics out there, if you're going to make fun of us, you're going to have to bring it a little bit better than that, because I mean, just doing this, you know, look at the freak, look at the Bigfoot guy, that doesn't work.
No, because we've gone mainstream. Bigfoot's gone mainstream, and we don't care about you thumbing your nose at us anymore.
Yeah, like literally, people who know that this is kind of a mainstream thing, is like, you can see that argument is just. I mean, there is no argument. They just said, well, you know, like, I mean, come on, give us a better model, give us a better. Like, just don't say no, like at least say, well, like, it can't be more than 30,000 or something like that. Like, and here's why, or just say, hey, look at the Bigfooter. Don't try to make an argument out of it.
Yeah, let's form an original opinion for once instead of just responding what everybody's crap put off. Also over at the Bigfoot Lunch Club, there's another great article on Cliff Barackman stripped down to the Ape Canyon shack. Now, this was one of the possible destinations that David and I had talked about, the Squatchcation, this fall. Unfortunately, we didn't get to go to a lot of those places, but the Squatchcation is still on. So, you know, we may actually be able to visit this location somewhere down the road. And I just thought it was great that Cliff was able to go out there with the researchers on the location and actually, you know, show them what they think is the site of the Ape Canyon attack. It's just pretty freaking cool, man.
Yeah, well, and also, like, you know, while the plug is basically sitting up there, this the November 16th, the Sunday is coming up. Well, not the Sunday, but the Sunday, November 16th is coming up. It's another hopsquatch in the Portland area or on the West Coast, anywhere. I mean, it's just a good get together, and a lot of good people, and Guy Edwards, who's a hell of a guy. And
yeah, he's a hell of a guy.
Experience why he's a hell of a guy, because he is.
Right. And while we're on the topic of Guy Edwards, once again, it's the rise of the lumbersexual. You know, I didn't know what this was until I actually read through it, but apparently hipsters have gone more lumberjack as the time goes on, and it's getting difficult to tell the difference between a hipster and a real lumberjack. So if he's not carrying an axe, chances are he's not a lumberjack. Sorry, ladies, I just figured I would cue you in on that one.
Well, the real difference actually is we're not just talking about like filth, like sweat and stink that sometimes the hipster can have. I mean, because it's obvious, it's part of the hipster thing. It's the dirt of actual manual labor is the difference between and a lumberjack. It's like, oh, that guy has got dirt and bark on his pants. not just
blood and crap from
stale beer. You know, like, okay, that is the difference between a lumberjack and a hipster.
from blood and crap all over your jeans from your ride in on the BART into the city. Bunch of little whiny bastards. Okay, dude. I took a ride on the BART and I soiled myself. A hominid, dude. They've been sharing this video trailer around everywhere, and I don't know what it is. It's a Bigfoot movie. It's not a Bigfoot movie. I don't know. Bigfoot investigators go out on the trail of what we're all seeking. Have you seen the trailer?
I have, and I really like the aspect that they're taking. Which, I mean, I'm not, no spoilers. I mean, it's a trailer, so there are no spoilers. I mean, basically, these are two primatologists that are interested in the topic of Sasquatch because, like we all say, if this actually exists, then it's the greatest question that a scientist can want to answer. So why wouldn't we be doing that? And of course, there's going to be a lot of pushback from their peers, and then going out in the field and meeting some people and probably some whack jobs, and like but like it's going to be interesting to see where they go with this. But I'm pretty much on board, kind of watching it. Like the acting maybe, like, I mean, this is an indie film. I think that we should look
Give
this
it a
guy
shot. Yeah,
I
give
think
it a shot.
we should look this guy up and have him talk about his film on our podcast if we can.
I think we could probably get a hold of this guy.
Doing Sasquatch and science, I want to talk to this guy.
Right, definitely, for sure. Now, next up, Finding Bigfoot's finally coming back. Now, we've been seeing the guys out. They've been doing all their filming and everything over this last season. And the episodes are going to start this Sunday. Comes back with a 2-hour special. And they've got mini marathons running like up to the time. Dude, I can't wait. I like Finding Bigfoot. I love sitting around and watching Finding Bigfoot.
Sunday, Sunday, Sunday.
That's right. We're going to scream on top of it. There's something on the hill. It's like I wait for that every week, and I don't know why.
I love the fact that there's surfboards.
Yeah, well, that's Bobo. That was the Santa Cruz episode, and I actually live right down from there.
I want to see Matt Moneymaker put feet up on that board and just ride the storm, man. That's happening.
We want to see Matt Moneymaker put full into anything at this point, I think. Dude, now, this blew my mind. The India baby born with 2 minds in the same body. Now, this isn't the first time that it's happened, and usually when this happens, they're like born with 2 faces when they have 2 brains. But this individual here has 2 brains and 1 body and 1 face. And what's miraculous about this is the fact that 1 brain controls 1 side of the body and the other brain controls the other side of the body. And the right side can be asleep while the left side is awake and interacting, and the right side has no clue.
That could be freaking efficient, man.
Dude, are you kidding me? Be able to rest half of your body all the time and never never stop the productivity? Watch out, man. Japanese scientists are going to be trying to get this going.
I didn't read too far into this one. I just I was like,
Yeah, it was kind of creepy.
Like, there's veins and the skin is dressed so tight and it's got eyebrows up and it's yeah.
It's not an alien baby. This definitely came out of a human copulation.
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy thing. Although the source,
Well, there we have it. I mean, soon enough it'll be here on American shores with an American doctor trying to fix it, I'm sure. One way or another, they always bring these babies over here to try and get us to miraculously heal them. I don't get it. This came across my feed. The old TBRC guys are now the NAWAC, and yeah, the Area X guys. That's Doug Hudson's patty recreation they've got sitting there on their table there. We're out enjoying a day at the Nurture Nature Festival in Baytown, Texas. And you know what? If you want to get the active Bigfoot sightings and you want to get people talking about Bigfoot sightings and locations to go and investigate, this is the number one way to go and do it, is to get out and meet the people. What are you thinking, David?
Oh, absolutely. And that bust, I mean, is that's a conversation starter right there. I mean, like, especially for people who have had a sighting, they'd be like, "Oh, that's exactly what I saw," or "That doesn't look anything like what I saw." But those are the people you want to talk to. I mean, so it's yeah. Yeah, you have to get out there and you have to talk to people, and you have to talk to people who are having experiences or have had experiences in activity, and get that info, and then do the thing. They're doing a different thing than the thing that I would do, but
Right. Well, hey, that's their thing, and I say congratulations for at least being active and being out and getting into these things. Now, the next thing I saw, I don't know what to think about this crap. Ghost Squatch. Guy is haunted by the ghost of a Squatch, and is talking to him in his mind or some crap. A web series. I love all things Squatch, but my love is starting to find some edges.
Yeah, there's definitely boundaries now, and this is it could be good, but it's going to be pretty low budget.
That's just
like a web series would be good for this thing.
Yeah, a web series is definitely it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It could be funny, fake mustaches and all. But
fundraiser. There's a fundraiser, so go and check it out. And we're getting down to the end of it, guys. I've been beating the dead horse of Bigfoot North all this week because we were talking about it last week, and it seems that they didn't even bother to keep up their Wix, their free Wix website is gone. If you go to BigfootNorth.com, this is what you get. That's not what you're supposed to get when you go there. So they're either not caring about it or they've taken it down, and hopefully they've moved on. Either way, personally, I hope we've seen the end of Bigfoot North and Todd Standing myself. What are your thoughts on it, David?
So this is a really interesting kind of like I don't know like hit and run kind of a project. Bigfoot North was what it was. It did a series of online broadcasts, and then boom, gone. However, Todd Standing will regale you with amazing. It's going to blow your mind at the Sasquatch Summit or whatnot, which I unfortunately cannot make it to. If I can,
is Todd Standing going to be at the Sasquatch Summit?
I heard a little something about Sasquatch possibly going to Sasquatch Summit, and if I could go, I would love it.
Well, I know quite a few people who will be there, so that'll be quite interesting. I'll get some of them to ask some questions.
We'll get the feedback and maybe a few questions. Hey, this is on YouTube, and you can ask questions on YouTube. So if anybody has any questions for the great Todd Standing, maybe put them here, and maybe we'll forward them on to the people who are going to be there, and maybe those questions will get asked to Todd Standing, which could be very interesting.
And Christopher York of the Freudian Slip is chiming in saying he is the man with two brains. And I'd actually have to kind of agree with him. That dude's got way too much smart for his own good, at least. Robert Vukovich, I don't know how to pronounce it, brother. I'm sorry. Left us this message on our Facebook page at facebook.com/SLoungePodcast. He wants to know, instead of trail cams, why not have more dashboard cams? A number of reports point out that critters have a tendency to run out in front of cars. Would it not be best to be cruising along the highways or isolated roads and so-called hot zones to film one? To answer your question, Robert, we do that. Actually, we do that quite a bit. The quads that we ride around up at the Sierra sites actually have a camera mount on the front of them, and that's actually one of the very first things that we do is put a GoPro or put an action cam up on top of one of those and get it running. So, yes, you should be doing these things in your research area. If you're out researching, literally, if you're just out walking for tracks, you should have a camera running. I can't tell you the number of just crying researchers I've talked to who said, I saw one, I swear to God I saw one, but by the time I got my camera out, it was gone. And now I don't have any proof. And that's exactly what you're going to be looking at if you don't have a camera going. Pretty much every minute that you're out researching. I'm a prime example. This summer I missed 3 clear vocalizations less than 100 yards from my camp because I didn't have a recorder running because, well, it's daytime. Bigfoot doesn't come out in the daytime. Yeah, well, I got news for you. He sure enough does.
But the big question is like, how much data are you willing to store and then go back through? And that's the hard thing. But so I mean, so many people aren't willing to just take like full terabyte hard drives and just record audio from your entire trip like directly to it. So what are you gonna do? But like as far as like like people do it up here all the time. It's called road squatching. I mean,
Right.
like, and my current car doesn't have like a mount because I got a suction. The surfboard attachment actually suctions pretty well to your window. But the car I had before, the one that I have right now, had a GoPro mount on the dash all the time, and I did record most of me trying to get into places, and once you get into the area where you're like, okay, this is where I think that we have an option to see something. You just roll tape, just because. Like, why not roll tape?
Yep, I remember one of the trips that we were taking. We got all the way back down the mountain, and my squashing partner looked over at me and says, "Yeah, that first bump that I hit." I said, "He says it knocked my camera so that all it did was stare at the ground." I said, "Well, you should get a good count of the number of toads that you didn't run over on the way down the mountain. It still has some validity."
Something, anything. It documents something while you're up there, and you don't have like for the love of God, people, don't put the entire thing on YouTube.
Yeah.
But if you get something good, don't just put the 10 seconds of good on YouTube. Put a little bit before and a little bit after, and then say, hey, I'm going to put this up if you want to watch the entire thing, but yeah, separately. And then share the one thing. And if somebody really wants to watch 4 hours of you driving up and down a logging road and then 10 seconds of good, there you have it.
Right. Guys, I gotta go ahead. I gotta bring this up, David. I did this nice, awesome comparison here in the lounge the other day. This, to me, is as ridiculous as somebody telling me that they look in that dead eye and see a living creature. And that's the only reason that I did this. People were, what are you beating a dead horse about Standing in his puppet heads for? And it's like, one, because it's fun and it gets a bunch of responses and we get a bunch of maymays going in the lounge. But it really literally is. This is just as ridiculous to me as people telling me that these puppet heads are supposed to be real.
And for me, it's like, what would you call it? Like the Klingon nose ridges. That's what does it for me. Like this perfectly, like it's a really good makeup job. I'll give it that. Like, or like prosthetics on top of a dummy. Like it's a good make. Like,
now the other comparison that I did, I thought came out even more perfect. The two of them side by side, so you can see what we're talking about. The Michael Jackson non-blinky comparison. Look, the lips even match. It's like whoever the puppet head was for Michael Jackson was definitely the same puppet maker for Todd Standing. I mean, that is just insanely ridiculous how that lines up. But that's all it's about. It's just a little bit of humor, people. It's not picking on Canada. It's not picking on Les Stroud. It's not picking. Well, it is picking on Todd Standing because he's a clown. But it's not a pick at you because you're Canadian that we're picking on a Canadian researcher. It's not us that's making these things up to pick on him about. It's his own actions. It's his own evidence that we're making fun of. It's not like we've gone out and made this stuff up and linked it to him. He's released it and said, "This is the best that I've got."
And like I say, it's good. It's just not real.
There you go. That's probably the best way I probably heard that put. There's been a discussion too about the Harley Hoffman footage that's come up in the coalition the last couple of days, and we had Doug Hudson of Clone FX here and Realistic Bigfoot Costume on Facebook talk about that, about what are the things to look for that make it fake, and everybody's like, well, if that's a fake costume, then I want it because it's the most living thing that I've ever seen. It looks exactly like what I saw in the woods, until you look at the fake werewolf ears that you can buy in the FX shop. And, I mean, he can even give you the number of the gray hair that's weaved in on the shoulders. and he can outline the really bad seam where two pieces were sewn together. Yeah, when you don't know anything about making costumes or making Bigfoot, look good on video, at first glance it might look great. But once you get 3 or 4, for me it's 1 red flag raised, then you just kind of have to set it aside and go, all right, well, it's interesting, but now it's no longer on the table.
Hey, if we find and study and document a Sasquatch specimen that looks exactly like that footage, we can bring that back off the shelf. But for now, put it on the shelf, maybe even into the round file. Sorry to say, but again, it's about context. I posted something in the lounge the other day. Like, it was just, how many of these things can how many of these animals can you see in this thing? And most of them were obscured and you couldn't actually see them. There were probably like 4, maybe 5. It's hard to tell again. Of these critters, like in view, plain view, and the video is very short, and then all of a sudden, like 30 or 40 these goat things, like rush off at the screen. And you're like, holy crap! And basically, it looks like a hillside, a grassy hillside with short grass and a bush. Well, okay, so there's some topography. There's a ridge line they're kind of hiding behind, and some other things. But again, you can't see any of that. And the tagline of the post that I shared in the lounge was basically, how many of these things can you see? Well, without them telling you that that's a goat, without them telling you what it is you're supposed to be looking for, it's effectively invisible. So Doug, having made these suits and knowing what to look for, knowing what he wants to hide in his own suit, gives him context to be able to look at things and like, oh, there's a seam there and there's a seam there. That's exactly what I tried to avoid in the costume that I made, in the realistic Bigfoot costume, etc., etc. It gives him context to see things that we don't see, and that's why we kind of default to him, is because I watched the video once, I didn't see any creatures, maybe one moved and then all of a sudden everything moved, and then I watched it again with context, knowing what they were, where they came from, and all these other things. Hindsight being 20/20, like I always say, and I was able to see 4 or 5 of these creatures in the static image after I knew what they were.
Yeah,
so and that's important, and why we, people are like, oh, wow, why do you keep going back to Doug Hudson? He just makes costumes. He doesn't know anything about Sasquatch. No, but he knows a lot about costumes, and that's really important.
Right, and that's why, yeah, he might not know a lot about living creatures. He's not a biologist. He's not out there making living creatures. He's just a guy who makes things that look like living creatures in his garage out of foam rubber, some spit, and a little bit of paint. I want to take that guy's word on what's a costume and what's not a costume. That's kind of the way I look at it. David, there was that moment tonight.
5 minutes on science. Oh, the moment got into the topic?
Yeah, we're going to talk about the cave. The caves. Why the caves? Everybody wants to go find Bigfoot caves. Why would Bigfoot talk? Why would Bigfoot live in a cave? We always find, we found the Gigantopithecus in the cave, so Bigfoot must live in the caves. Is that what's going on here, David?
I think that partly that's what's going on here, and if you put it that way first and make me reverse engineer everything, that's going to be 5 minutes. I was going to do 1 minute of science. Now I got to do 5 minutes. So we find the fossils of Gigantopithecus and other apes and primates and even some early human ancestors in caves. Well, it's all fine, well and good. However, they didn't live there. They're really pre-Australopithecine, this is still like an arboreal primate, right? The ground-dwelling apes we don't see in caves unless they were scavenged or taken there after being killed. We find a lot of even modern Homo, not modern, but okay, so early Homo species. Like, again, I always bring up the Demonese specimens. The Demonese specimens didn't live in the cave they were found in. All of them basically had been killed or scavenged by other animals. Like, this wasn't like, they didn't find a lot of artifacts, they didn't find a lot of this, that, and the other, which leads to the whole idea that they didn't have any tools. No, basically they had cat teeth marks and other things in their skull, and they were dragged into these caves and eaten, and they were preserved because the cats liked the caves. Okay, so we did live in caves at some point, and the Neanderthal lived in caves at some point, and the Denisova lived in caves at some point, but that's not that's not the primates, like operation, right? Like most primates are boreal, and when you get taken into a cave is usually because you've been eaten. That's probably what happened with the Gigantopithecus, because the Gigantopithecus, they didn't need a lot of, like, think of a gorilla. A gorilla is like a terrestrial ape, coming from an arboreal ancestor versus, like, the terrestrial apes that the orangutans and like the Gigantopithecus came from actual ground apes. They were more suited to be on the ground. Gorillas are even kind of poorly suited to be on the ground all the time, but they're mostly terrestrial. And I mean, they live in the bush and they eat the vegetation that they eat, and they do all the other things. Gigantopithecus was eating bamboo, which may have had caves around, but there wasn't a lot of reason for them to go into those caves. Like, why would you go into a cave if you were a Gigantopithecus? If you're eating fruit, bamboo, and other shoots and tubers, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to be like, hey, I'm going to go into this cave and hunt for cave bats. I don't know. Like, it's not what they would have done. Why would they go in there? Now, us specifically was probably for a preservation thing. This is all, hypothetical, theoretical stuff. But why humans used caves is because it's a point. There's a point of entrance. You know where the threat is coming from. You can.
It's easier to defend.
Yeah, it's easier to defend. You can move yourself like up and down a sheer face with your fingers and toes and climb into these things and avoid the type of animals that can't climb into those things, right? So you can use this as a shelter from even being attacked by, like, let's say, a clawed animal. And the only instance I was able to find on the internet of a primate using a cave naturally was, like, it was one clan of lemur in Madagascar that actually just chose to use this cave, but they were using it like it was a sheer face, and they were able to climb down. They couldn't climb up; they had to climb down into this cave. So there was nothing else that was going to be in there. They could be by themselves, probably some creepy crawlies, but that's fine. We're okay with that. And everywhere else, the documentation had to do with deforestation and just looking for cover. So deforestation, looking for cover, Australopithecine, moving on to the savanna, like adapting to non-arboreal life, needing cover, maybe utilizing caves. It makes total sense. Sasquatch being, a bipedal primate, probably of that same lineage. Could they? Yeah, that's the caveat here. No primates really do that aside from us. Well, Sasquatch being a bipedal primate probably has some of that same lineage, unless it's like, like the sporadic, divergent evolution that just, happen to be paralleled. But my whole thing is, like, why would they need that when we didn't need that at the time of the evolution of walking upright and whatever we share with them, and then all the differences? It seems that what our need for the cave came later.
Well, that's where I'm at with it. Is the human line? The human line sought out the caves for different reasons than what a natural animal would seek out a cave for. Coyotes. Coyotes use the crap out of caves. Why? Because they're not a home dweller. Coyotes are roaming in packs across mountainsides. They don't give a flying crap where they slept last night. They don't give a flying crap where they're going to sleep tonight. And they sure as heck don't give a flying crap where they're going to sleep tomorrow night. They are a roaming band of wild pack dogs who just pack up in whatever the heck looks comfortable. But they seek things like regular dogs do. They want to be cool and quiet and secluded. So they do. They pack into caves. They get under brush piles. They get under wood piles, and they pack animal in. But that.
It's the den instinct, like like if you throw a blanket over a dog and they they are completely covered, like our claustrophobia is like reverse to most dogs. Like most dogs, love their crate because it provides them their den instinct, where they're in the small enclosed space. They feel safe because nothing can get in here because it's so small, it barely fits me, nothing else can get in here, and I'm safe. And that may be what led us to wanting to go into these caves, is just that instinct of like, I'm safe in here. Nothing,
right.
Like the stone and this rock and there's no way in but right here, and I can watch that with my good binocular eyes like that. I mean, that's
I can set a fire out in front of it and scare off 99% of anything that would approach it. The other 1% I can see coming. If it's not afraid of fire, it's probably another human being, and well, they're dangerous enough as it is. If you look at some of the nomadic tribes of like the Native American Indians, their teepees and their traveling nomadic trips that way. The teepees were basically a traveling cave system. They basically graduated from moving from cave location to cave location to designing their own system of caves to be able to make a tribal village in any location that they want to be able to follow the food in. But that came long later because they had to follow the food. Back in the instances that we're talking about, where humans would have been living in caves, the food would have been so abundant that you may have had to move once a year. Whenever the snow season came in, you would probably have to move down to a different level to find food again until the snows went away. But, again, is that still what we're looking at, as the safety of feeling there's something hard behind me and I don't have to worry about attack?
When we started utilizing caves was probably more in that savanna area and more like prior to our not human or modern homo just our radiation family tree spinning out of Africa at whatever point that it did, whether or not the East Asian erectus used caves, it certainly seems like they do, but we find most of their caves after Heidelbergensis met up with them when they were over there, yada yada yada. But it seems like that was something so early on that's an innate thing for
and a lot of times when people are finding finds, wonderful scientific finds in these caves, is a lot of it is water wash. Caves are basically catch-alls for anything that's above them. If it's above it and the water's running down it, it's going to end up in that cave somewhere. That's exactly why scientists love to find caves in locations that they're trying to find archaeological studies for, because they know that it's basically a giant time capsule. Not necessarily that they live down there, but it should have pieces of pottery, pieces of tools, like we were talking about. One of the guys I was squatching with in the Sierras this summer, John, was like, how do we know that Sasquatch don't, go in and kill themselves a hibernating bear in the cave, eat it, and just lay down in the warm spot, kind of rest it out for the rest of the winter up there? I said, well, that's an interesting thought. Would they, would they want to do that?
So I was watching a documentary recently about was it like the Toiga, northern Russia, northern North America, and hibernating bears, and they're really not asleep. They're awake, they're aware. You wouldn't just walk in, even if you were a Sasquatch, you wouldn't just walk in and kill a bear unless you had a rifle or some sort of weapon that could just do that at long distance. If Sasquatch is carrying spears, then we're all screwed. But so you wouldn't just walk in there and do that. They're awake. They're basically their body temperature just cools about 3 degrees, and they don't have as much energy, and so they don't use as many calories, so they can survive the winter without eating. I mean, that's basically it.
That was like me laying in your bed for 2 days after the Squatchcation, just trying not to die.
But that wasn't. Yeah.
I've done a lot of exploration in caves. Okay, so let's per se that you're going to find a cave, in your search location that you're going to go and check out. First thing I'm going to tell you is, let's get serious here for a moment. Get yourself a helmet. And make sure it's a good caving helmet. You don't go into caves without something on your noodle to protect it from when shit falls from the ceiling on it, because it will, and it will kill you. And there are lots of people who went into caves and said, "Nah, I'll be all right this time," and never came out. So if you're gonna go into caves and you're gonna be doing that kind of stuff, get you guide rope, get you a helmet, and get you some training, because caves are not places to play around. You twist an ankle in there by yourself, chances are you're never going to be seen again because you can't get out. And caves do draw predators. They draw bears, they draw wolves, they draw coyotes, and they draw mountain lions. So if you're laying in there with a twisted up ankle, chances are something's going to find you before you can find your way out.
There's a perfect example up here. There's a place called the Bat Caves, which isn't actually like, what is a cave? It's not exactly a cave. It's just a bunch of like gigantic boulders that fell like off of a mountainside at one point. And there's areas where you can stand up. Sometimes you have to squeeze through, and there's a couple chambers that are like 18 to 20 feet tall, but it's mostly just these boulders, and you can actually from the top fall down in. And there's warnings about necrophilia and fear of dead things and bones and other things in there, because there's all manner of dead stuff up in there. Because the deer falls down, breaks its leg, and then that night everything moves in to feed on it. There's vultures circling. There's all sorts of stuff. It's a dangerous place to be. Don't go deep into the cave. Okay, but we and our cousins and like the ancestors that we know that lived in the caves didn't go deep into the cave. And I'll tell you why. If you go far enough into some caves, you suffocate.
Yeah, there's no oxygen back there, air movement.
You ever hear the canary in the coal mine? There's all these gases that release that will displace oxygen in your lungs and stuff like that. Like, we didn't go much past the first or second chamber, right, in some of these larger caves. Like, it was protection. There's probably nothing behind you, and I can watch that entrance and feel good about myself. But you think about the existence in a cave. I mean, if we had something living in a cave now that was like our ancestors and the Neanderthal, I mean, we left all of our dead in there. We left all of our, like, we would butcher and skin and leave bones of our food in there. We shat and pissed in these caverns, right? I don't care how big that cavern is. That thing is, you can smell that from a mile.
Yeah, that's gonna smell like humans.
Unfortunately, if you want human smell, it smells like rotting flesh and feces.
Yeah, well, that very well could have been on purpose as well, to keep the other animals at bay. Not in the wild, animals don't like the smell of humans in general. They'll back away from it. They'll scurry away from it. I guess because they say they know it's dangerous. Well, maybe we just think dangerous to them on purpose. Who knows what that pheromone is giving off? But the one way to spread human smell quickly is through scatting and urinating. I mean, that will scatter human scent for hundreds of miles, or hundreds of yards, very, very quickly. As you say, it's odoriferous as can be.
Yeah, I think honestly, like, if you're in a research spot, like, bombs away. I mean, that might be interesting. Like, like, especially like urine, the pheromones in urine, like, what the hell is that? Like, not that Sasquatch probably have a much stronger olfactory sense than we do, but if they're walking by and they're conscious of that at all, it might even just put them on edge. Like, they don't even know why. It's like, we smell something and we don't know why we're freaked out by it, or I don't know why I'm turned on. When lady's ovulating, so like. I'm not conscious of that, but yeah, I mean, put it out there, like, hey, I'm here, and maybe they're not even aware of that, but it just puts them in some sort of state that's interesting. I mean,
well, we've heard a lot of the stories where Sasquatch will come around camp and they'll pee on your cabin, or they'll pee on your tent, or they'll pee on your sleeping bag, or they'll pee on your on your picnic table, or they'll pee on your cooler, marking their the fact that you're in their territory. And that's one of the reasons that I tell investigators, if you want to set a trap, urine's a good way to do it, and if you're going to be out there 3 or 4 days, you're going to have plenty of it to set that trap. Take a set of urine trail past one of those game trails and see if you can't get Biggie going, walking past it, trying to figure out what's going on.
Who's drinking Starbucks?
That's right. Who's been out here having their Ensure in the morning? It's gonna be an interesting year this year. I think there's a whole lot more people taking it with a little more serious twists. I was contacted. There's a fella going to be doing a Bigfoot documentary here in the area that contacted me. I'm going to put some people in contact with them for some investigation work this spring. They're filming a documentary all through basically Northern California, starting down here in San Francisco. So it'll be interesting to be part of that again next year and see where it goes from there. Well, I don't know what happened there. There were 2 more comments in the chat box, but somehow they've now gone away. Thank you, YouTube, for providing another great service for us, interacting with our customers and our audience.
A free service is a free service.
That's right. You can't complain about a free service. It's been a fun week this week, man. I mean, there hasn't been a whole lot of drama going on, thank God. So sick of the drama. When you are the #1 Bigfoot webcast on YouTube, people just beat the crap out of you. They're just so jealous about it. And, what can I do about it? I can't do anything about it. It's just the way the numbers come out. Right, David?
Sure.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Come on, and I purge all of my weekly Bigfoot panderings based on whatever topic we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, time to reset, and let's take a look at what's going to be going on in the future. But back to the subject at hand, the Bigfoot in the cave stuff. I want to go look at them. I do. I think that's an interesting thing. If you can travel through that cave without being seen, and there's human encroachment around it, it very well may be a travel point. But once you make 1 or 2 turns inside of a cave, you no longer have natural light, and you can't see anything. And even if you have infrared eyes, like everybody says that Sasquatch can see into the infrared spectrum, that isn't going to help them when there's no light whatsoever.
There's no infrared either. Yeah, so that's where you need the bioluminescent eyes, the glowing eyes, so you can light your way, but all you can see is the light that is your eyeball. I still have to figure that one out. But no, I think cave.
Oh no! It's the patented Squatcher's Lounge bullshit alarm.
Deep into the cave.
That's right.
No,
that's a good point, though.
Because they have the binocular eyes.
Right, but that's a good point with the bioluminescent eyes for the cave traveling. I never really gave that a thought. They could just turn on their high beams and be able to walk around inside the cave and use it from place to place. Now, for me, I would think, just like I was talking about on the Monsters Underground, where they have the little white LED lights around the caving helmet so that it lights up their face on TV, but they can't see anything. Wouldn't your eye cavity lighting up and casting light out of it kind of blind you a little bit?
Well, so that's my whole thing. It's like, is it the eye? Like, yes, I walked around on the Brown property, several weeks ago with like a FLIR up to one eye, so light projecting. And then my naked eye on the other one closed most of the time, and then I would take the one down, and I had to like close the eye I was using the FLIR on, and so like I was just like, 2D vision, like wandering around in this cow field at night. I mean, you can't shine a light in your eyes. You can't shine a light with your eye because your eye is a light sensing organ. I mean, like at some point in evolution, it was just 2 holes that sensed light. Like, like the whole eyeball thing is like, pretty phenomenal, but it's not going to shoot light out of it without shooting light back into it. Like the whole orb has to glow.
Which is kind of what I was thinking, but that's what didn't make any sense. So if I'm shooting light out of my eyeball...
You're shooting light straight into it, so all you're seeing is the light in your eyeball. However, that doesn't mean that you can't reflect light. We've talked about that before, and the tapetum lucidum and like other things like that. And there's possibly other ways that could happen, and there could be other things going on to explain that phenomenon. I just think that it's just... We're going to have to dissect a Sasquatch eyeball to really prove that one to me. And that's how it is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Now, we've heard, and I've heard it come out of Matt Moneymaker's mouth myself, where they've done experiments where they've taken red LED lights and they've blinked them down into the woods, and somehow the Sasquatch, through their bioluminescence, blinked back. Now, I'm not going to call the man a liar because I wasn't there, and I've never dissected the eyeball of a Sasquatch. But wouldn't that be something that's even completely different than, like high beams in the cave systems?
So, here we are again. Like, so how is the light coming to, like? You're capturing light with your eyes. Where is it coming from? Is it a reflection from something else? Is it, if you put two red LEDs up and a deer looks straight at it, would that not reflect some light?
Are we still there? We're having a little bit of technical difficulty for a moment, people. I think we're
back.
I think we're back. Sorry about that. It says that we're still live. I have no idea what happens. This happens to us from time to time, and, well, we just do what we can do about it. Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, basically, it's okay. What we were talking about, though, I've totally lost track of. So since it's getting to be about that freaking time, we're going to wrap this up this week. We want to say thanks to Sasquatch Coffee, squatchcoffee.com. Go out and get you some Sasquatch coffee. I got to get my logos back up. I've been lazy about that. I don't know what's really going on. Guys, keep an eye on the channel. The Bigfoot campfire stories are coming back. They were out on hiatus for a while. I got some things figured out, and they should be coming back in the next 10 days. So the channel should be picking up with some really cool new Bigfoot campfire stories. David, what you got coming up soon, buddy?
For me, the holiday season is not a good time to get out, so a lot of stuff has come up. Looking to 2015, I'm not even joking at this point. So I really want to get back down to the Browns because I had to cancel twice on them. But it's just like work is so unstable right now. I'm not even going to make any promises. It'll be a surprise if I make it before the end of the year.
I mean, it's definitely going to be an interesting holiday season this year for me as well. The Reverend Jeff sings the holiday classics. Will definitely be, I think, making a replay this year. I don't see why not. It was a lot of fun to do last year. So I think we'll have to bring this one back. What are you thinking, Dave? You thinking we'll help me out with that?
We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it real and proper.
Yeah, do it up big time. Go see Good Neighbor Tattoo if you're down in San Diego. See our boy Wes and get you some squatchy ink. And while I'm thinking about it, come out and see us at facebook.com/groups/slounge, and come and find the Facebook at facebook.com/slounge podcast. Thanks for joining us for the Squatchers Lounge podcast, season 2, episode 41. And may the Squatch be with you. Yeah, I can't wait, dude. Springtime is gonna be bombed. I talked to Jamie. He's gonna be cool with us coming up the last weekend of spring. So the Bluff Creek trip is on. I can't wait to see all the moose tracks coming up that everybody's saying are Bigfoot tracks now that the snow will be falling. That'll be fun. feels so good to be a paid Bigfoot expert these days.